All right, so we're going to talk about the process, the logistics, how this is all going to work. And we actually did put these PowerPoints together a long time ago and practiced them, but I haven't looked at it since then. That was like a month ago, so a slide pops up and I look surprised. That'll be the reason. Any questions so far? All right. I feel like I know a lot of you because I've been exchanging some often too wordy emails, right? Get one of my emails, yeah, it's a long one, always. So hopefully this will kind of flow together. We try to design it so one thing would lead into another. And one of the things that we mentioned, and Joni, we can hand those out right now too. The commitments that we're going to ask you to make, obviously with a cohort-based system, if we had people dropping out after a semester or a year, it's not going to work very well for us, right? Because we could end up with just a few people in a few places, and that's not going to be good. So what we're asking you to do, essentially, which we put on a link in the application, and we mentioned it in the marketing materials we sent out, is we want you to sign. It's not a contract. It's just so that there are no misunderstandings later on down the road, what our expectations are and what your expectations are, and so that we make sure that we meet. And it's a simple little thing. We'll pass them around here in a minute, but we do want you to sign it and give it back to us so that we know that we've done our job in communicating, what needs to happen. So don't drop out. We have one for the school districts as well. And we're going to hand that one out. After lunch, we're going to have a little powwow with the folks that are here who are administrators. And that's going to be, Jonah, the room number across the hall, I think.
400.
Yeah, in room 400.
It's the classroom.
And do we want them to go there right after lunch? We'll come back here and do a drawing.
Yeah.
Right after the break. Okay, yes. So, administrator folks, after the break that we have this afternoon, when we do the cohort activity, we'll convene across the hall for a few minutes, and we'll talk then about the district commitments. Okay?
Yeah, if you are an administrator, you don't sign this when we're passing out now.
Right. And so when we say administrator, we invited directors of special education. If that person couldn't come, we were certainly pleased if you could send a building principal, or if you could send a process coordinator, or anybody that can translate information that we're giving you back to the district. I'm not sure. I think it's probably most appropriate for the director of special ed to sign the district commitment, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so every non-administrator got one, right? Okay.
I'm going to actually give you just a second to look at that, to see if you have any questions about that. I don't actually have it. And you could just sign it when you get a chance and hand it in back to Joni or someone. Yeah. Yeah, right after lunch. Or if you need to mull it over, you can turn it in later. Questions about that?
There's one over here.
Yes. So the question is, will we be sending out a schedule of the cohort meetings? And actually, I'm going to talk about that here in a second, but I'll talk about it now. Not a problem. We have scheduled the first cohort meeting. We've actually scheduled 2 of them, right, Shannon? The second one is subject to change. The first one, we figured we need to tell you when it's going to be so that everybody can show up there. What we want is for the cohorts to democratically reach a unanimous decision about the best times for the group and the day of the week and whatnot. So if you don't get that done by the time the second session happens, you'll use the one we're going to pick out for you. If you do decide as a group that you want to meet on a different day or a different time, that's okay. We have to work it out with the person from Project X that's going to be coming to do the training. So that person will have to be involved in that decision-making process too. But the plan is to take care of that at the first cohort meeting. So we'll give you the first one, and then we'll work out within the cohort the best time and day. Okay? Good question. All right, see now we're already going to get to skip that slide when we get to it. So let's talk about how the process is going to work. Hopefully today will be one of the last times that we'll have you just sitting in rows listening to us talk to you. Our idea is that from this point forward, a lot of the informational stuff you'll be able to go over online. So we'll practice what we preach. We will talk less and show more. So we're going to use the split instructional model. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that term. The didactic part, the lecture part, whatever you want to call it, that will happen online. And then and those will be 2 times a month. So on average, depending on when cohort meetings take place, but they will, you'll have a meeting that's online, not a synchronous meeting, it'll be just whatever, anytime, anywhere. You'll go through that information, and then the next time we meet with you in person, we'll assume that you have taken a look at that content, and then we'll have an in-person session that is going to be a lot more interactive and active. Okay, that's the idea. And then, so this is the way it will work. First meeting of the month will be online, then the next one will be in person, and then the third one will be online, and the fourth one will be in person. And then the next month, one of the Project Access coaches will come and visit you in your classroom, and if things go according to plan, we're going to be flexible about all these sort of the minutiae of these details, but the following month when the person comes to your classroom, we'll be looking at targeting the skills that we learned the previous month. Okay? That makes sense?
One of the things I say on that mic, I can probably talk loud enough for you to hear me. Can you in the back? Okay. This is so fun. It's not fun for me. When we say meeting online, we are not saying meeting as a group. It's not there will be an online lesson for you to see and to gain some information. There may be an online lesson, there may be some reading, but it's not like a webinar that you're all together. You can sit at home and do it in your pajamas on a Sunday morning or whenever you want to do it, okay? And we won't be seeing you in your pajamas, okay? So I wanted to make that clear. It's not a meeting. It is an online information gathering session that you do individually.
Good. Questions about that? No? All right, awesome. All right. Well, I think we may talk more about the coaching here in a second. I can't remember what these, like I said, I'd be surprised when I see the slides. So talking about the online lesson. Some of these, if you've taken any of the Ocali Autism Internet modules, how many people have done one of those before? A couple people, only a few people. All right, that's kind of good. We'll be using some of those for our online portion. Why reinvent the wheel? There's some pretty good lessons already out there. There's a group from North Carolina. They actually created the Autism Internet modules through a big grant that they got 10 years ago or so. They're refreshing them now, and they're now called the Affirm modules, but those are being hosted in a different location, and we'll be using some of those, because some of them are a little bit more up to date, and we like the way that they've included a lot of interactive little exercises and a lot of videos, a lot of media in there. By the way, when I say a lot, so it's estimated that these will take about an hour to somewhere between 1 and 2 hours normally to go through and do these modules. Now, we may have additional things for you to read, the books that we're handing out, and then there's going to be about a third of the modules that'll be Project Access original content. Hopefully, we'll try to stick somewhat to the same kind of format so that you'll get used to that. So you're going to need an account on AIM, Ocala we call it, because that's where they're hosted, the Ohio Center for Autism and Low Incidence. You'll also need an account for Affirm, and you'll need an account for our course management system at Missouri State. It's Blackboard. Now, we created all those accounts for you, so you don't need to go create them. And we've issued you I hesitate to say email address because you probably never will use it for email, but you could if you wanted. We're issuing you an account on our Google domain. So we have our own Google domain, moprojectaccess.org, and that's going to be your email address. The first part of your email address, you'll see it when you get the card here in a minute. I'll talk about that in a second. But at moprojectaccess.org will be your login for our Blackboard system. So later on this afternoon, we're going to have a cohort activity, get acquainted, and just very briefly, as part of that little cohort group when you get together with the folks that you'll be meeting with, for the next 2 years, we have some cards. Yes, color-coded, just like your notebooks. And on the card is your login information. Password's the same for all of them. You probably will want to go in and change your password at some point. Now, the Blackboard login doesn't work yet. Long story, but we've got a new Blackboard system which migrated to the cloud, which is awesome because the new system is faster, more reliable. The fellow that manages that for Missouri State is on vacation this week. And since we had this, changing landscape in terms of who was going to be here today, we couldn't really create those accounts until really yesterday, and I tried to get in touch with them, got his out of office reply. So we'll do that. He's back on Monday or Tuesday. I will shoot you an email through that Blackboard system as soon as that's set up so that you can log in and change your password or just log in and see stuff. I'm going to show you here in a minute. We've already started putting content out there. Shannon, the link to the Magi is there, and we'll add the other link that you had. Yeah. Okay. I guess actually I was going to spend a whole slide on Blackboard, but now I already talked about it, so I don't need to. Questions? Hopefully you have some questions, otherwise we're going to finish pretty quickly. All right.
Well, one comment about that. Don't panic over it. I'm terrible with IT. Mike is nice. If you've got stuck on one of this, you can call Mike or somebody else in our office, not me. And and we'll walk you through it. So don't panic if things don't
I'm going to send you a really long email.
Yeah.
Explaining it in too much detail, probably. Right, Stephanie? Okay, so apparently I was supposed to be speaking about books in that slide because it was supposed to segue into this one. I forgot what I had in my mind, but here's the thing about the books. So we have some books for you to pick up and take with you. On the card that you get with your login credentials for these various systems that we have, we'll have you show that when you leave, and that's how we'll know what books to give you. And on the back of the card, there is some information about what additional books we'd like for you to take. If you, for example, are coming from a school district and there's another teacher from your district that's participating but couldn't make it today, we would love it if you would take that person's books with you so that we don't have to mail them. Okay? So we'll make a little notation that you've taken your books and that you've taken whatever other person's books. Okay? I see Joni. Why don't you jump in here?
This book thing is going to happen at the end of our day, and I have 5 different sign-in sets so that you won't have to wait in a long line. There'll be 5 of us handing out books. Oh, thank you. And so whichever line you get in, just find your name, and if it's applicable protocol the name of the person that you're taking books for and sign that one too. But you'll only need to come, there'll be 5 people and you'll only need to come into one line. That way you won't be waiting and waiting and waiting at the end of the day to get your books. Does that make sense? Just pick a line, sign away that you got your books, and then we'll put it all together later, okay? But be sure you sign for whoever books you take. Okay.
Questions?
That will just be for the teachers. The administrators don't have those.
Yes, I was going to mention that, but thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the books are expensive, so we don't sadly have sets for the admin folks to take home, but if you want to know what's in them, I will send you a long email. So we have 4 books, right? Make sure that you have 4 books in your bag. We've got we're calling them packed packs for Project Access Autism credential. In your pack there should be 4 books. The Ziggurat model book that we mentioned already today. Another book called Uniquely Human, which we'll talk more about later on today. Right, Shannon? Shannon will keep me honest. Setting up classroom spaces that support students with autism spectrum disorders, right, Edna? And a 4th book, Building Independence, How to Create and Use Structured Work Systems. Okay? Those are the 4 books we're sending home with you today. There may be more books down the road. We haven't really hammered that out yet. So,
Probably each semester there may be some additional books, but we will provide those for you.
yeah, you will quickly figure out that since you are in the inaugural pilot cohort, we are somewhat I'm going to say positive and saying we're staying flexible, right? Which is another way of saying we don't have it all figured out yet, but we will get there. So part of what will happen during those in-person meetings is we're going to have you put together an electronic portfolio. And our plan right now is to use Blackboard for communicating with you. We can send emails, you can send emails, you can post to discussion webs, all this will be set up. And it's actually, some of us are already set up. You'll be able to communicate with us through Blackboard, but also my plan is to use Blackboard for developing an electronic portfolio. Has anybody ever done a portfolio before? So, okay, about half of us, that's awesome. So a lot of, DESE for a while required teaching portfolios for initial certification. I don't know if that's when you did it. Yeah, okay, you see the head shaking, yes. In my former life, I actually developed a portfolio system for Missouri State, which they used for a long time. They just stopped using it a couple of years ago, so I felt good about that. People would see me at Walmart, and they would wave and say, "You're the portfolio guy." Right. That's how I'm going to be remembered. That's fine. So we're going to have some artifacts that we want everybody to do, and there will be. This is one of those things we don't have it hammered out exactly how this is going to work, but our thought is that there will be some artifacts that everybody will do. We're thinking like things that are general, like maybe doing a functional behavior assessment. We want everybody to be able to be very competent at doing that. So that'll be something that you can put in your portfolio. If you've already done something like that, then you'll just be, ahead of the game. And we're going to put together some scoring guides on what we expect those artifacts to look like, and then there'll be some opportunities for you to choose from a choice of artifacts. Get the idea? Okay. It'll be easy. It'll be simple. You'll create those products in the in-person session, some of them. And you probably have to finish them up when you get back to your classroom, but questions about that? All right, let's talk. I was pretty sure there was another slide in here about coaching. Yes, there is. Okay, good for me. How does the coaching work? Okay, this is our conceptualization of this. And we've been doing coaching for years. Project Access has. We had a whole program, an initiative that was centered around coaching. But we're going to sort of take this to a different level. And before, coaching a lot of times involved problem solving and with whatever problems that you were experiencing. So this coaching is going to be different than that. This coaching will be focused on, like I said, last month's training will be this month's coaching session. And our thought right now is that those are going to be so targeted and specific that the coaching, in-classroom coaching, shouldn't take 1 to 2 hours, okay? The in-classroom coaching, and by the way, we're bringing into Missouri a group from North Carolina that's going to give us a project access, and they've been doing this for a while. We've stolen little bits and pieces of this program from various places where we think they do things well. And this is one thing that our thought is that they do things well. We will know more when they come and visit us, but they're coming to visit us this summer, and they're going to go over what they think works well for coaching, and this is sort of their model. They do a targeted examination, and it does involve troubleshooting and just how to collect data on the skill that you're using, how to see if it's working. Maybe this isn't the best evidence-based intervention to be using for this particular problem, those kinds of things. They'll just be coaching you through that process. It's not any kind of evaluation. It's definitely a collaboration. The coach is there to help you sort out, to perfect that skill, okay? And be able to use it in practice. Do you want to mention anything else about coaching?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. It is probably somewhat different from any kind of coaching you have experienced in the past. A little bit different. But I think you'll like the way it turns out.
Coaching will involve a pre-coaching meeting and a post-coaching sort of wrap-up or follow-up. And we're thinking that the pre-meeting probably most likely will happen before the coach comes to, well, it will obviously it'll happen before. Okay, I just said it. We can hammer that one down. But it might happen by telephone. That's what I was awkwardly trying to say. Or, we might use some Skype or Google Hangouts or some kind of video conferencing thing so that we can actually see your lovely faces. Something like that. We don't know yet, for sure. But suffice it to say that that'll happen probably the day before, or maybe could be a couple days before. Could be the morning of, who knows. And then we'll visit with you and talk to you about what we're looking for and what our expectations are, just so you know, okay? You'll have to practice these things in your classroom before we get there, though. So it's not going to be the first time you're doing it. It'll be, just us sort of as a follow-up and troubleshooting and so forth. And that's likewise with the post-meeting. And one reason why we thought we might do it using Google Hangouts or something like that is because you're going to have a coach that's dedicated to your area, to your cohort group. You'll also have a different person that's leading the instructional meetings, the in-person sessions. That'll be somebody from our office, from Springfield, that's going to drive to your location. The coach, though, some of the coaches are in your location already, so there'll be somebody that we contract with that's local to you. I don't know where I was going with that. I had another point to make up. It's gone out of my head now, so we'll come back to it maybe not. I was going to say about the Google Hangouts. Yes, okay. So we thought that this is our pilot year and that we may want to be a little more hands-on and integrally involved from our office. And so doing Google Hangouts or something like that would allow us to have a meeting that involves you. It's like a conference call, You, the coach, the instructor possibly, somebody from our office possibly. Uh-oh. Storm alert.
No, Amber Alert.
Amber Alert. So I already talked about portfolios. Let's mention this. So some portfolios, artifacts will be obvious. Like if we're having you develop some kind of visual support, how do you put that in a portfolio? Well, obviously, it's not going to be a paper or a portfolio you can even touch. It's going to be electronic. So there will be some taking the photographs, some shooting a video potentially. You can use your phone. We don't have to get complicated with it. But we'll have to be creative in terms of strategies and helping you get those things into a portfolio. Get what I'm saying? Yeah. All right, good, cool. And I didn't mention this, but I think the next slide probably does, because I think about the graduate credit. So the portfolio, if you want to get graduate credit for this program, it's going to be available through Missouri State. the graduate credit, we've been really fortunate to work this out with the folks in the special ed department at Missouri State, will also be applicable to the master's degree in special ed with an emphasis on autism that they offer. So that's also going to be kind of cool. So we will have somebody from that department be instructor of record for people who are seeking graduate credit. There's going to be some additional assignment, and it can give us maybe some more details about that.
Yeah, there will be probably an additional, for those, how many of you have some interest in graduate credit from Missouri State? Okay, super, because it's going to be cheap, okay? It's going to be what?
Half price.
Half price, okay? Now how many are in? But there will be, the things that you do in this, within your cohort and within these activities will be will be the main part of that course. There may be one additional reading or paper writing activity that is added to that from the university professor who will be the professor of record on that course. But it will, the work you do with us is the meat and potatoes of that. And each semester there will be 3 hours of credits offered. So you could take up to 4 hours credit. 4 hours? Where'd that come up with that? I always come out and a vaguely related word comes out. You can get 12 hours of credit over these 2 years. Okay. So it seems like to me it's a good deal. If you're going to be doing all this work anyhow.
Yeah, we're super excited about it.
Yeah. It's available there too.
All right. So again, we've already talked about this slide and the last slide. How to register. So we mentioned the fees are going to be half price. We didn't know on the slide if we're going to get that worked out, but we did. Since we're doing the instruction, the university's not having to commit a full-time person to that. They've agreed to give us a cut rate because they really don't, all they're doing is processing the paperwork. Well, that extra assignment that the instructor's doing, and they'll be, of course, doing some grading. But it's a lot less than they would do for a normal 3-hour course, suffice it to say. So how to register? Well, the answer to that question is we don't know exactly yet. We're kind of hoping that the associate provost and the instructor, the lead professor in that program talked about coming with us today. They didn't make it, so we thought I was just going to punt on this to them, but since they're not here, I'm just going to say there'll be more information about that, which we will share with you via a long email. Okay? It'll happen through Blackboard. Okay, so prerequisites for this. We toiled over this issue for quite some time in our office, sorting out how much we expected people to come in knowing, and what we decided in the end is that we would like for you to have completed the online introduction to autism. Some of you probably already have done that. Some of you have done it, but it's been a while ago. Some of you have come to face-to-face versions of that. Some of you haven't done it at all. And so we know that you're all across the spectrum of how experienced you are and how much training you've had previously and how much Project Access training you've attended previously. So what we're going to do is that Blackboard account that I talked about earlier, when I send you an email saying Blackboard's live and ready, you can log in, we'll pre-enroll you in a section of an online section of the online intro. And what we want you to do is log in. There's a pre-test and a post-test, and there's a series of videos linked to PowerPoint slides through it. If you've already done it, just go take the post-test. Just refresh your memory to the extent that you need to, okay? If you've not taken it before, you'll want to sit down and go all the way through it. It takes a little bit of time to go through if you haven't seen it before. But so, what I'm just saying to you now is use your own judgment. Go take the post-test if you want to just go straight to it and see where you're at. But we do want you to have mastered that content. That sort of prerequisite kind of stuff.
Which means they need to have 90% on the post-test, right?
I think it's set up to be 85. Yeah, 85.
Right. Once you demonstrate 85 on the post-test, then your prerequisite will be met.
Yeah, and
They
if
take
you,
it again if they don't get 85%?
you can, so let me tell you how that intro is set up. There is a pretest. It pulls questions from a test pool, and if you take it more than once, it's a different version of the test each time you do it. Same with the post-test. But as you go through the course, it's broken up into 25 lessons. Each lesson has about 5 or 6 questions. Once you do all 25 lessons, you've seen all 108 questions. You've seen all 108 questions. As you go through the lessons, you can take the quiz that goes with each lesson as many times as you want. You don't even have to contact us. You can just go through and do it. And it will direct you back to watching the appropriate video if you miss something in one of those questions. So by the time you get to the end, you've seen all the questions if you take the time to go through and look at all of them. Yes, you can take it again. It's set up so that you can automatically take it one other time, the second time. And in the event that 2 times isn't enough, you can call us and we'll reset it. Okay? But hopefully you won't just jump to the end and take it as many times as it takes to get the 85%. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so if you figure out that you're only doing 50% of them, just go back and look at the appropriate part of the course. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. I kind of thought there'd be more questions. Yes, question. Yay.
When is that due?
When does that do? Before we start in the fall?
I think before your first cohort meeting, a week before your first cohort meeting.
Yeah. We're actually going to talk more about that here after the cohort activity. You see, we're going to give you an assignment to go home and work on. That's why we're giving the books out today. And that's why we're sending the books home with folks who have teachers from their district who are participating. And that's why we had the meeting this early in the summer, is because it's going to, and I will pre-warn you, there's a little bit to it. It's not trivial. That's why, and it's not the work that we're going to give you to do this summer before we start with the first meeting is not going to be comparable to what you're going to get every time. So don't panic when you see what it is. It's all very doable before summer starts. But one of the assignments is to go look at that intro and either do it if it's new to you or refresh yourself if it's not new. Okay?
Another question back there.
Yes, question. Yes.
I thought maybe you'd go over this before, but it's about the cohorts. Well, not the cohorts, but the in-classroom observation and stuff. If you're in an area that they say they're not coming, is that going to be done over video?
So here's the question. Let me see if I can paraphrase it for everybody. So when we first developed this program, we called it the Project Access Autism Credential. Actually, that's not the first name we called it. That's what we landed on after many animated discussions in our office. And we invited any school district in the state, good question, thank you, who wanted to participate, to participate. And I will tell you that there are at least as many districts that we invited as districts that took us up on it, more actually. But when we started examining where those districts were located, we quickly determined that there was no way for us to put cohorts together where the drive was reasonable for everybody that would be participating. Some of the school districts are not close to anybody, and so it was going to be a long ways away. And that's okay, that's fine, but then we started thinking about, well, how will we coach cohorts that are spread over large geographical areas? And we decided that it probably wasn't going to be doable, at least in the pilot program. So that's when we developed the idea of having a second route to completing the training. And that one does not involve classroom coaching. And that's the one we're calling the Project Access Autism Team Support. So that's why everything says PAC and PATS on it. So people who are part of PATS, who are, I think we only actually have 3 who have signed up to do PATS. will attend the cohorts, be part of a regular cohort, do all the training. Everything happens the same, develop portfolio artifacts. The only difference between these two programs is we won't actually be able to go to the PATS classrooms and do the coaching. Now, not to say that we might not, since there's only 3 of us, figure out how we can do some kind of dial-in through video. I don't know what may happen. So I think we're sort of open to suggestions, but our plan right now is that there'll be 3 of you guys that won't get the classroom coaching piece just because we can't get somebody to you because you're sort of, a little bit further away from the center of the cohort. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Mark, do we have any of those who are going to come to the cohort meetings and do that, but who do not have classrooms like speech pathologists or process coordinators?
Yes, that's a really good question too.
Yeah.
And
talk about that.
in fact, our application, our original concept was just classroom teachers because we wanted people who were directly responsible for the programming of students. And then we decided that we would open it up and let people apply that were SLPs or whatever they might be, and speech language pathologists, process coordinators, whatnot. And that those people don't necessarily have a classroom, so they would be part of PATS just because they don't have students that they're responsible for. Although, how many people do we have like that are process? They're not classroom teachers that have applied. A couple? Yeah, we don't actually have that documented in our. So like I said, we developed the application form before we just decided to add that. So there was no checkbox to say, I'm doing it as part of PATS. So a couple people. Yeah, good to know. Yeah, and not to say that, I think that the coaching of students will be something that we'll have to also be pretty flexible about. Because originally we had this also a minimum number of students that people would be responsible for, thinking that we wanted you to have a range of students so you could practice all these different evidence-based interventions. That's not going to all be in one student, clearly. And students will be they'll need different kinds of interventions. So you'll be using different students with different strategies. You may not have a student for some strategies, I'm thinking, I don't know. And if you are one of those PATS people, maybe you'll be able to try this out with a student even though you're not responsible for that student's IEP. That might be possible. So all things are possible. We'll just have to sort of figure this out as we go a little bit. Make sense? All right. I only have like 3 slides left. Cool. All right. So I said that we robbed features of this program. We sort of picked and chose features of different PD programs that were out there. One of them that I liked, I brought it to the table because it's not technology. And it was the EMITS program. So I don't know if you are familiar with EMITS in schools. And EMITS is kind of cool. They started about 2000, and the idea was to teach inquiry-based instruction using technology tools. It wasn't about teaching technology at all. It was about inquiry-based instruction. They started in 3rd grade because 3rd grade had the MAP test that they were going to use as their metric to see how effective they were being. But one of the things that DESE did for the EMITS program was they published a list of program completers in the EMITS training on their website. So when we met with DESE about a year ago, it was a little over a year and a half ago now, to talk about this new program, we asked them if they would be willing to do that for us. Because we want to, shout it from the mountaintop when you guys finish. Be a real feather in your cap for your schools, we think, and also for you. So that'll be an opt-in situation, though. You may not want your name listed on the DESE website. You may not. But if you do, DESE has agreed to have a page dedicated to showcasing folks who have finished the program. That's cool? Yeah. So we already answered this question. Actually, the last question was the first question. And so we can tell you when it will be. And today, I can't stand here and tell you that we know where it will be. We have choices in most locations. And in fact, we're going to visit with the administrators, like I said, later on after lunch. And we're going to talk more about this. We know which cities they'll be in, but we don't necessarily know what building they're going to be in today. But we don't anticipate that's going to be any kind of problem. But more information will be forthcoming. We will send you emails, long emails. Okay? All right. I'm just going to talk about, when we marketed this, we talked about evidence-based interventions and some teacher-friendly ABA. So what exactly does that mean? Well, Dr. Ennis Smith is going to fill you in.
You might tell me the when is going to be.
Yes, we can tell you when today, but I think that I would send you an email for sure as soon as Blackboard's available, which should be Monday or Tuesday, and I will recapitulate that in the Blackboard email. So you can write it down, or you can just wait till a couple of days. But
Okay. When we meet as cohorts today,
that's what we'll
we'll
say.
tell you when our first meeting is next.
That makes perfect sense.
All right. Okay. We'll see how it works. Okay. Any difference? Okay. Okay. We have talked about this. It is going to be about evidence-based practice and about that there's going to be some focus on ABA, on applied behavior assessment, or anybody here who is already a BCBA? Okay, all right. This is gonna make you one, okay? That's the truth on that is. But let's talk about what we're talking about when we say evidence-based practice. And we're going to go and when we talk about evidence-based practice, we're basing it on this document, on this, have you seen this in your school? Okay. Hang on to it, it'll give you some ideas. It is the one that you can download, as Shannon mentioned earlier. And when the Magi refer to evidence-based practice, they use this kind of Venn diagram. A lot of people think that evidence-based practice is all that consists of is research support. If there's enough research support, that's what you ought to be using. But the reality for us, for evidence, what we're considering evidence-based practice, it is individual child specific. So we need to know what are the characteristics of that child, okay? So the individual characteristics is part of our Venn diagram. Certainly the best available research is part of that, but professional expertise is part of that. So we need to, and when we think about professional expertise, and we are not thinking we're going to make you into experts in any of these practices, but we want you to have enough information and experience to guide your team in determining whether or not there is sufficient research and whether or not there is sufficient, whether or not this particular or which of the particular evidence-based practices are appropriate for the particular child that you're looking at. Does that make some sense? Okay. Another issue about professional expertise is, and I'm going to look at my notes here because I tend to go off on tangents if I don't do that. So basically, we want to be sure that we have, that our community, that our school has the expertise to implement the particular research supported strategy,
for this particular child. And we may look at, we see information about this, and the family comes in and they say, we want this strategy for our child. Anybody had that happen? Okay. And we're kind of around going, blah, 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 blah. I don't know how, I don't know how to do that. Or we don't have the resources and the level of expertise to implement that particular strategy with fidelity. And it doesn't work if it's not applied with fidelity. Now, we could go off and get training, and it probably is a good idea, but it may not be in time. We may not be able to develop that level of expertise in time to be beneficial to that particular child. Okay, so we're going to need to look at some other methodology that's going to work with that child. Okay, does that make sense? And that is okay. Okay, you are not expected to have expertise in all of the 20-some practices that are listed in the MAGI document. Okay, does that make sense to you? Okay, so not to be concerned about that. All right, the other thing is about, what about this ABA stuff that we talked about? Well, the principles of applied behavior analysis underlie many, but not all, of the evidence-based practices that we're going to address. A whole lot. There are, and what the developers of the MAGI did was they talked about comprehensive interventions and focused interventions. And when they talked about comprehensive interventions, they meant things like the total, what many people call the LOGOS program, okay? Early intervention for young children with autism. Or another comprehensive intervention is Division Teach, okay? The TEACH model of structured teaching. We are but pieces of the program that is often referred to as LOGOS is discrete trial teaching, okay? That is in and of itself one of the evidence-based practices. So we might, in time, address discrete trial teaching, or we might address pivotal response training, or reinforcement in general, or strategies that are antecedent strategies, environmental manipulation. So we will be addressing more focused strategies one at a time than those more comprehensive. That said, one of the first things we're going to address is structured teaching, okay? A more comprehensive strategy. So, as I mentioned earlier, although we're going to be addressing a good number of strategies that are based on the principles of applied behavior analysis, this training is not going to lead to ABA certification for you. We're going to be addressing some things like cognitive behavioral interventions. We'll address modeling, schedules, social communication interventions. We'll probably address some things that, in fact, that's what the MAGI was published in 2012, 6 years ago. There's some good stuff that has been shown to be effective over that period of time. So we will probably be addressing some of those as well. So, as I said, we don't expect you to become an expert, but we do hope that we're going to give you an opportunity to explore a variety of evidence-based practices and hone your skills in choosing what strategies are going to best work for our particular kids on the spectrum with whom you're working. Make some sense? That's where we are. Any questions?
So the email that said that $500 for the course, is that for the course for the credits, or is that?
So that is for the course, that is what your school district is paying to allow us to allow you to come to this, okay? That if you want to take academic credit, then that's on you.